My name is Daniel Harris, a retired engineer who recently decided to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. In the summer of 2023, I moved into a quiet suburban house in New Jersey, seeking tranquility and a fresh start. The house came with a modest pool, perfect for the hot summer days. I envisioned spending my afternoons lounging by the pool, reading books, and enjoying the peaceful surroundings. The neighborhood was friendly, and my neighbors welcomed me warmly. They were eager to share stories about the town and its history. One story that particularly caught my attention was about an old, neglected public pool in a nearby park. It had been abandoned for years and had become the subject of local legends. The pool, hidden behind overgrown bushes and a rusty fence, seemed like a relic of a bygone era. One evening, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to visit the old pool. As I approached, I felt an inexplicable chill in the air. The water was murky, covered with leaves and debris. Despite its state, something about the pool drew me in. As I stood there, I noticed faint ripples in the water, even though there was no breeze. It was unsettling, but I shrugged it off as my imagination playing tricks on me. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The image of the ripples in the water haunted my dreams. I awoke in a cold sweat, the sound of distant whispers echoing in my ears. I tried to convince myself that it was just a bad dream, but deep down, I knew there was something more to that pool. My curiosity had been piqued, and I was determined to uncover its secrets. The next day, I returned to the pool, this time with a flashlight. As I shone the light into the water, I caught a glimpse of something strange. A pale, ghostly face stared back at me from beneath the surface. I stumbled backward, my heart racing. When I looked again, the face was gone. I knew then that my investigation had only just begun. Curiosity got the better of me, and I began asking around about the pool's history. An elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, recounted a series of drownings that occurred in the 1970s. "They say the pool is cursed," she said, her voice trembling. "Some believe the spirits of the drowned children haunt it." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, but I couldn't resist the urge to learn more. Determined to uncover the truth, I visited the local library. I spent hours poring over old newspaper clippings and historical records. Each drowning seemed eerily similar, children pulled under by an unseen force. The stories were chilling, and the more I read, the more I felt a connection to the past tragedies. I wondered if there was something more to these drownings than mere accidents. One particular article stood out. It described the death of a young girl named Emily who had drowned in the pool under mysterious circumstances. Witnesses claimed to have seen her struggling, as if something was holding her underwater. The article mentioned that her body was never recovered, which added an eerie twist to the already tragic story. I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness and empathy for the lost souls. As I delved deeper into the history of the pool, I discovered that it had once been a popular gathering spot for the community. Families would come to swim and enjoy picnics by the water. However, after the drownings began, the pool was abandoned and fell into disrepair. The town tried to erase its existence, but the memories and legends lived on. My investigation led me to a retired lifeguard named Tom, who had worked at the pool during its heyday. Tom was reluctant to talk at first, but after some persuasion, he opened up about his experiences. "There was always something off about that pool," he said. "I saw things I can't explain. Faces in the water, whispers in the night. It haunted me for years." Tom's account added credibility to the legends, and I knew I had to continue my research. I started compiling all the information I had gathered, hoping to find a pattern or a clue that would explain the hauntings. The more I learned, the more convinced I became that the pool was indeed cursed. But why, and how could I stop it? The more I learned, the more strange things began happening at my home. Objects would move on their own, and I heard whispers in the dead of night. It started with small things. My keys would be in a different place than where I left them, or I would hear faint footsteps when I was alone. At first, I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to an overactive imagination. One night, as I was lying in bed, I felt a cold breeze brush against my face. I opened my eyes to see a shadowy figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was a child, drenched in water, with hollow eyes staring directly at me. I froze, unable to move or speak. The figure slowly faded away, leaving me paralyzed with fear. I knew then that whatever was haunting the pool had followed me home. The next day, I confided in my neighbor, Sarah, who had become a close friend. Sarah was a skeptic when it came to the supernatural, but she listened intently to my experiences. "Daniel, have you been experiencing anything strange?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. I nodded and she sighed. "You're not the first. This town has a history of hauntings." Sarah shared her own encounters with the paranormal, mentioning similar haunted pools in Canada and Europe. "It's like there's a connection," she mused, "an unseen thread linking these tragedies." Her words intrigued me, and I realized that the hauntings might not be confined to just one place. There could be a larger, more sinister force at work. Determined to find answers, I spent the next few weeks researching haunted pools around the world. I found stories of eerie occurrences in Canada, where a public pool in Toronto was said to be haunted by the spirit of a lifeguard who drowned trying to save a child. In Europe, there were tales of a cursed pool in France, where multiple swimmers had mysteriously vanished over the years. Each story had its own unique details, but there were striking similarities: ghostly apparitions, unexplained drownings, and a sense of malevolence that seemed to emanate from the water itself. I began to see a pattern, and I felt a growing urgency to uncover the truth behind these hauntings. My own experiences were becoming more intense, and I knew I couldn't ignore the signs any longer. Determined to uncover the truth, I delved deeper into the pool's history. In the attic of the community center, I discovered an old lifeguard's journal. The entries were chilling, detailing sightings of ghostly figures and unexplained phenomena. The journal belonged to a man named Jack, who had worked at the pool during the 1970s. His accounts were eerily similar to my own experiences. One entry stood out: July 15, 1975. Another child drowned today. I swear I saw a hand pull her under. I can't shake the feeling that something evil resides in that pool. Jack's words sent a shiver down my spine, but they also gave me hope. If he had documented the hauntings, perhaps he had also found a way to stop them. As I read through the journal, I noticed a recurring theme. Jack had mentioned a strange symbol carved into the tiles at the bottom of the pool. He believed it was the source of the curse, but he never figured out its meaning. I knew I had to find that symbol and uncover its secrets. It was my only hope of ending the hauntings. With renewed determination, I gathered my equipment and headed to the pool. As I dove into the murky water, I felt a sense of dread wash over me. The pool seemed to come alive, the water swirling around me with an unnatural force. I reached the bottom and found the symbol, just as Jack had described. It was a circle with intricate patterns, unlike anything I had ever seen. I took photographs and returned home, hoping to decipher the symbol's meaning. I spent hours researching ancient symbols and their significance, but nothing seemed to match. Frustrated and exhausted, I almost gave up. But then, a thought occurred to me. What if the symbol wasn't ancient, but rather a unique creation meant to bind the spirits? I decided to visit the local historical society, hoping to find more information. There, I met a historian named Dr. Elizabeth Collins. She was intrigued by my findings and agreed to help. Together, we pored over old records and documents, searching for any mention of the symbol. After days of relentless research, we finally found a reference in a long-forgotten manuscript. The manuscript described a ritual performed by a local cult in the early 1900s. They believed the symbol had the power to trap souls and bind them to a specific location. I realized that the pool must have been the site of one of their rituals, and the drownings were a result of the trapped souls seeking revenge. The curse was real, and I had to find a way to break it. Armed with this knowledge, I decided to confront the entity. One stormy night, I returned to the pool. As thunder rumbled, I felt an overwhelming presence. The water churned violently, and I saw a figure. A child, pale and ghostly, reaching out to me. I steeled myself, determined not to let fear control me. The battle was both physical and psychological. The ghostly child seemed to control the water, creating whirlpools and waves that threatened to pull me under. I struggled to stay afloat, fighting against the unseen force. I remembered the lifeguard's words and shouted, "I know your pain. I know your story." The figure hesitated, its hollow eyes locking onto mine. In that moment, I felt a connection, a shared understanding of the pain and suffering that had bound these spirits to the pool. I reached out, my hand trembling, and touched the water. The figure slowly faded away, leaving the pool calm and still. I knew then that I had made a breakthrough, but the battle was not yet over. I returned to the historian, Dr. Collins, and together we devised a plan to break the curse. We believed that by performing a cleansing ritual, we could release the trapped souls and put an end to the hauntings. With the help of the local community, we gathered at the pool, ready to face whatever came our way. As we performed the ritual, the water began to churn once more. Ghostly figures emerged, their faces twisted in agony. We held our ground, reciting the cleansing incantation. Slowly, the figures began to dissolve, their tortured expressions replaced by a sense of peace. The water calmed, and a feeling of serenity washed over us. We had done it. The curse was broken, and the spirits were finally at rest. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, knowing that I had helped put an end to decades of suffering. But as we celebrated our victory, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to uncover. The next morning, the pool was eerily calm. The oppressive feeling had lifted, and the water was clear for the first time in years. Reflecting on the events, I decided to document my experiences, hoping to warn others about the dangers lurking in such places. I spent weeks writing, pouring my heart and soul into the account. However, as I penned the final chapter of my account, I stumbled upon a chilling secret in the lifeguard's journal, an entry suggesting that the hauntings were not confined to the pool. The entry read, "I fear the evil has spread. It seeks new places, new victims. Beware the water, for it holds more than just memories." I realized with a sinking feeling that my own pool at home might be its next target. The thought of facing another haunting was almost too much to bear, but I knew I couldn't ignore the signs. I began to prepare, taking precautions to protect myself and my home from the spreading evil. I installed cameras around the pool, hoping to capture any paranormal activity. I also reached out to experts in the field of the supernatural, seeking their advice on how to safeguard my property. Despite my efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the days turned into weeks, I noticed subtle changes. The water in my pool seemed to ripple on its own, and I heard faint whispers whenever I was near. The final showdown was approaching, and I knew I had to be ready. I gathered my courage, determined to face whatever came my way. In the weeks following our victory over the haunted pool, I found myself increasingly haunted by a lingering sense of unease. The entry in Jack's journal about the spread of evil weighed heavily on my mind. Determined to uncover the deeper connection between the hauntings, I reached out to Sarah, hoping she could provide more insights. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, inviting her over for coffee. As we sat in my living room, I shared my concerns about the potential spread of the curse. Sarah listened intently, her eyes widening with each revelation. "I've been doing some research of my own," she said, pulling out a stack of papers. "There are similar symbols and hauntings reported in pools across Canada and Europe. It's as if these places are connected, not just by coincidence, but by something more sinister." We spent hours poring over the evidence, noting the eerie similarities between the cases. Each haunted pool had a history of unexplained drownings, and each had a variant of the same symbol I had found in the old pool. The realization hit us both simultaneously. These pools were linked by a dark force, possibly a cult operating on a global scale. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah and I traveled to one of the haunted pools in Toronto, Canada. The public pool there was said to be haunted by the spirit of a lifeguard who drowned while trying to save a child. As we investigated, we found the same symbol carved into the tiles at the bottom of the pool. We interviewed local historians and experts, discovering that the symbol was linked to an ancient cult with roots tracing back centuries. This cult, much like the Illuminati, was believed to conduct rituals involving water and human sacrifice. Their goal was to appease dark forces and gain supernatural power. The drownings were no accidents. They were sacrifices meant to feed the cult's sinister purpose. Our research took us to Europe, where we visited a cursed pool in France. There, we met a local historian named Jacques, who had been investigating similar hauntings. Jacques showed us records of a secret society known as Les Enfants de l'Eau, or the Children of Water. This society was known for its dark rituals involving water and human sacrifice, aligning perfectly with our findings. Back in New Jersey, Sarah and I pieced together the evidence. The cult's influence stretched across continents, using pools as portals to trap and sacrifice souls. The symbols acted as conduits, drawing victims into the water and holding them there until they drowned. Each death fed the cult's power, allowing them to maintain their grip on the supernatural. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. My own pool, with its subtle disturbances and eerie whispers, was likely the next target. Determined to prevent any more deaths, I contacted Dr. Elizabeth Collins, the historian who had helped me before. Together, we devised a plan to neutralize the symbol's power and close the portal for good. The final showdown took place on a stormy night, reminiscent of my earlier confrontation. As thunder roared and lightning flashed, we gathered at my pool, ready to face whatever came our way. Armed with knowledge and determination, we began the ritual to cleanse the symbol and close the portal. The water churned violently, and ghostly figures emerged, their faces twisted in agony. We held our ground, reciting the incantation that Dr. Collins had prepared. The figures tried to pull us into the water, but we resisted, determined not to let fear control us. In the midst of the struggle, I saw a familiar face, the ghostly child from the old pool. She reached out to me, her eyes pleading. I realized then that she wasn't trying to harm me. She was seeking release. With a final, desperate effort, I completed the incantation, and the water began to calm. The figures slowly dissolved, their tortured expressions replaced by a sense of peace. The symbol at the bottom of the pool glowed briefly before fading away, its power broken. The storm subsided, leaving us standing in silence by the now tranquil pool. The next morning, the oppressive feeling had lifted, and the water was clear for the first time. Reflecting on the events, I felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. The curse was broken, and the spirits were finally at rest. But the knowledge of the cult's existence and their dark purpose weighed heavily on my mind. I decided to document everything I had learned, hoping to expose the cult and prevent future tragedies. With Sarah and Dr. Collins' help, we compiled our research into a comprehensive report, which we shared with authorities and paranormal investigators around the world. As I finished writing, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The cult might be weakened, but their influence was far from over. My own pool remained a constant reminder of the battle we had fought and the lives we had saved. I vowed to remain vigilant, ready to confront any new threats that might arise. In the end, I realized that the true horror wasn't just in the hauntings themselves, but in the dark forces that orchestrated them. The pools were merely gateways, and the cult's reach extended far beyond what we had uncovered. But for now, the waters were calm, and I could finally find some measure of peace. Thank you for watching our stories. Did you enjoy it? What do you think could have happened next? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more stories based on real-life events, click on the video appearing on your screen now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling tales. See you in the next video.